Hello, I'm Paul Carroll, and welcome to part 2 of this digital photo video tutorial on Photoshop colour management and printer settings. We're now going to look at the colour management options under the print options within Photoshop. If I open up an image into Photoshop, you'll see that I get the embedded profile mismatch error message. Now this is similar to the error message I was talking about a few moments ago, which can be rather annoying every time you open an image. This error message is slightly different though, because it's not giving us a choice of whether we want to keep the embedded profile from the document or assign the working profile from Adobe's colour settings. It's just telling us that it is going to assign the sRGB working profile, which we've already decided in our colour settings it's fine for Photoshop to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the box which says don't show again and click OK. It'll open my image, it'll assign the new working space, which is the sRGB colour settings, and I won't ever get that error message again because I've asked it not to show me that dialog box. In Photoshop Colour Suite, the colour management options are accessible via the Print with Preview option. Now that's found under the File menu. There is another option called Print, and while you'll find the printer driver options under this menu, you won't find any colour settings, so it's best to always go in via Print with Preview. As we're currently talking about colour management, I'm going to skip over these Position and Scale menus temporarily and show you how to set up the colour management print options. To access these, we need to click on the More Options button, and you can see that brings up our advanced options. Under the first drop down menu where it currently says colour management, there's also an option for output, but we need to ensure that it is selected to colour management. Next, under the print menu, we need to choose between the two print options, either document or proof. We want to leave it set at document, which means the printer will use the colour profile already assigned in our document. You can see in the brackets this is identified as sRGB, which, as we've already established, is the range of colours your printer can accurately reproduce. Now if you've got to this point and there's a different profile in the brackets, then this serves as a good checking point, and you'll need to go back to the previous colour settings menu and amend the profile accordingly. Okay, so now we can move on to the options menu. Under Colour Handling, from the drop-down list, select Let Photoshop Determine Colours. Under the Printer Profile, select Working RGB from the list. The Printer Profile informs Photoshop how to handle the colours in your image depending on the printer and paper combination you are using. As sRGB is becoming the default colour space for many inkjet printers, and we've set our document to sRGB, Photoshop should not need to adjust the colours in your image because they will all be within a printable range. That said, however, using sRGB as a printer profile may not produce the best colours depending on your specific printer and paper combination. Under the printer profile list, there'll also be a range of profiles specific to your printer, which would have been included on your printer's installation CD. There'll be a range of specific profiles for different types of paper finishes, such as glossy, matte or fine art. Depending on the printer paper combination you are using, try experimenting with different printer profiles to see the effect on colour representation. You can then determine which profile produces the most pleasing results depending on your particular setup. If you intend to use paper not produced by your printer manufacturer, then you should download the printer profile specific to your printer model and the type of paper you're using. These profiles can usually be found on the paper manufacturer's website. Now that we've made those selections, we have an information icon to advise us to disable any colour information within the printer driver. The reason for this is if we leave colour management in the printer drivers active, we'll be managing the colour twice, once in Photoshop and once in the printer, which can lead to inconsistent and often horrible looking results. So we'll look at disabling this in a moment when we enter the printer drivers. The final drop-down list is under the box Rendering Intent. Now these options tell Photoshop what to do with colours that are outside of the printable range. To all intents and purposes this is irrelevant to us. Because we're using the sRGB printer profile and colour space, all of the colours within our document will be within the printer range. So we can leave this to the default setting of Relative Colorimetric. Black point compensation should also be left tick, because this ensures that the darkest neutrals in the colour space are defined as the darkest neutrals when printed. Okay, so that's all of our colour management options set in Photoshop's print menu. We can now move back to talk about position and scale. Under Scale Print Size, you can determine the size your image is printed on the page. If you're using a high-res image and want to print it on A4 for example, as with this document, you can define the exact proportions you require in either centimetres, inches, millimetres, points or picas. So for example, if I knew I wanted the height of my image to be exactly 5 inches, I select inches from the drop down list, punch 5 into the box, and it automatically constrains the proportions of the width and resizes the image for me. I can then use the position options to place the image on the page. At the moment the center image box is ticked, and accordingly the image is on the center of the page. But if I wanted to place it nearer the top, I could uncheck the center image box and type in some figures to say that I wanted it 1 centimeter away from the top. Also, while Show Bounding Box remains ticked, I can use my mouse, hover over the image, click with my left mouse button, and then I can free place the image exactly where I want on the page. So for example, I might want it somewhere like there to print it out nicely on a piece of A4 for exhibition. The next stage is to click on the Page Setup button. The Page Setup options let you select the printing paper size, source and orientation. The size that you choose is obviously dependent on your printer and what paper size you are using, so just select the appropriate option from the drop-down list. The source list tells the printer where the paper will be fed from. On this printer we have two options: automatically select, which will bring in multiple pages one after another, or only one, which will just print a single page at a time. Some printers, however, accommodate printing from roll paper. This is a great tip for saving money and ensuring the highest colour consistency between your prints, by buying in bulk and getting inks and paper from the same batch. The orientation menu dictates whether your image is printed in portrait or landscape format. If I wanted to print this particular image on a full page of A4, I'd need to select landscape from this list, click OK, and then back in my scaled print size option I could click the Scale to Fit Media box, which you can see then fills the page with my image. Okay, so with our colour management profile set up and our page set up, all we need to do now is set up the printer drivers and we're ready to print. These printer drivers can be accessed via the Page Setup button, so click there, and in the bottom right hand corner click on the Printer button. You'll need to select your printer from the drop down list. The printer that I'm using today is the Epson Stylus Photo R220, so I'll click there, and you can see these details below that just tell me that the status of the printer is ready and what the printer is and how it's connected to my computer. Okay, so to access the drivers for this printer I just need to click on the Properties button here on the right, and that brings up my printer drivers. The settings that we need to check for colour management are accessed via the Advanced menu. So click on the Advanced button, which is in the bottom right hand corner. We're going to start on this first tab under the Advanced menu, which is called Main and houses the most critical functions. Now if you remember earlier on in the Photoshop colour management, we told Photoshop to handle the colours. So in the printer driver colour management, this section here, we want to click on ICM, which stands for Image Colour Matching, and then on the box underneath, click Off No Colour Adjustment to disable any colour management carried out by the printer drivers. On more advanced printers than the one I'm using, there will be a range of other options underneath this Off box. You can ignore all of these because they're for managing colour with different paper combinations. Now we need to check our paper and quality options. Some of these will already be correct as we set them earlier on. Others will still need selecting. The first option is for the source and dictates whether we want to print on sheeted paper or use the CD/DVD printing tray. So we're just going to leave it as sheet. On the right of this is a box for borderless printing. So if you do want to print borderless, be it either on A4 or on A3, just tick the box there. The error message which pops up tells us the print quality in the top and bottom areas may decline, and there may be some smearing across the image depending on the type of media that you're using. With borderless prints that I've done, I've not noticed a significant drop in quality towards the edges, but if it's bothering you, then you can always not print borderless and then trim the edges using a guillotine, although obviously you'll end up with a slightly smaller than A3 or A4 print. Okay, so we'll just click OK to get rid of that error message. The next drop down box dictates what type of media you're going to print on, i.e. what type of paper you have. If you're unsure what type of paper you have, it usually says on the box itself, or alternatively you find it on the data sheet supplied with the paper. I'm using Epson Premium Glossy, so I'm going to select that from the list. The next drop down list selects the quality of the photo. Now, although I've not been able to discern a great difference between photo and best photo, for the highest quality it's recommended that you use the best photo setting, so we'll select that one from the list. The media size, A4, and the printing orientation, landscape, we've already set in the previous dialog box. And you don't need to worry about the reverse order box, so we can skip over these and move straight down to the 4 options towards the bottom. The high speed option means that the printer heads print in both directions. Although again I've not been able to discern any major quality differences between having high speed checked or unchecked, it is recommended for best quality that you leave it unchecked, so we'll uncheck it in this example. We don't want to print this image in grayscale. This is an option that will be used when you are printing black and white images, which we're not going to touch on in this video tutorial, so we're just going to leave that box unchecked. We're also going to leave the print preview box unchecked because we've seen our preview in the previous dialog box and we don't need to see another one because we're happy with the orientation and layout. It's best to leave edge smoothing ticked, however, particularly if you're planning on doing borderless printing, so we'll leave that one as it is. Okay, that's it. That's our main printer driver settings established. And these are now our custom settings for printing high quality photos on Epson Premium Glossy paper. We can save the profile off in order that it can be loaded up in future. To do this, just click on the Save Setting button and give it a name. So I'm going to call mine A4 Best Glossy and click Save. And there you are, you see that my specific profile is now available in that drop down list. There are several options under the Page Layout tab, most of which you can ignore. However, this is the place where you can enter the number of copies that you want to print. So if you are doing multiple copies, you can just enter a figure in there, say 5 copies. Right, so with those settings inputted and saved, you should achieve pleasing results consistently, as long as you stick with own brand inks and paper. If you're still getting unsatisfactory results with these settings, then it's probable that your printer is malfunctioning in some way. You can troubleshoot minor problems with the options under the Maintenance tab. And it's also worth considering the durability of your printers. There are models available now at very cheap prices. After a fair amount of hammer, they're likely to start encountering problems in terms of faulty nozzles and unaligned heads. And unfortunately they won't go on producing perfect prints forever. And a final issue to consider if your printed results are very dark or the colours are very different to those on screen is the calibration of your monitor. This is not an area I'm going to cover in any great detail in this video lesson. Suffice to say that ideally your monitor should be calibrated monthly for absolute accuracy. There are expensive calibration tools available that professional image makers use within a production environment. However, a much cheaper option is to use the Adobe Gamma program, which is accessible through Windows Control Panel. It utilises an easy to follow wizard which will prompt you on making an adjustment to your monitor settings such as brightness and contrast, as well as the colour sliders that dictate the input levels of the RGB channels. And this will allow you to calibrate your monitor to a good enough standard for home printing. And, as a further note of caution, in the same way as your printer, monitors have a useful shelf life of only a few years, after which the brightness, contrast and colour output will deteriorate, meaning you could be calibrating it daily, but it's no longer capable of accurately and consistently reproducing the colours in your images. So the sobering reality of my conclusion, therefore, is if you want accurate and consistently good prints, you'll need to keep your equipment up to date. Use the expensive but good quality own brand products, such as inks and papers, as well as getting your colour management and print settings correct. I hope you found this video lesson informative, if not particularly exciting, and it sets you on the right track to getting some cracking colours in your prints. Okay, see you next time.